Saw X is a 2023 horror film directed by Kevin Grudert, who actually edited all of the Saw movies, starting way back in the original, which is super cool. He also directed Saws 6 and 7, and this movie was written by the dynamic duo behind Jigsaw and Spiral, technically Saws 8 and 9, the previous two Saw movies. So here's the thing. I'm a huge Saw fanatic. I have the Billy the Puppet in my room on the tricycle. I actually have a piece of cloth that was used on John Kramer's head from the 4th movie. I've watched these movies countless times, and I feel like ever since the original span with these two recent movies, while I enjoyed both of them enough, Jigsaw and Spiral, I just didn't feel like they got back to what this franchise was about. It just kind of spun off and more or less did the same thing. And while Saw 10 definitely gets back into the groove of the Saw movies, this is a completely different spin on this franchise. I absolutely loved it. It was everything that I wanted as a fan and more. And I think, just an initial offset before I jump into my nitty-gritty opinions, because I have a lot of things to talk about here. Just on the outset, I think this is definitely in my personal top 3 of the Saw franchise, maybe even my second favorite after the original. I'll have to go back because I really do like Saw 2 as well. But that's interesting because technically this movie takes place in between Saws 1 and 2, and those 3 are the top 3 movies in the franchise, so that's pretty telling. This era, I guess, of John Kramer's life is the most compelling, narratively speaking. What I think I appreciated most about this movie, and I think most people who have seen it agree, is the focus on John Kramer's character. We all were intrigued by Jigsaw, and we liked seeing his process. I think that's what I appreciated about 2 so much, that we got to see, kind of peel back the layers of John's life. But in this movie, he is basically the main character, center stage, for a good while. Then we start to get to the traps and stuff, but it takes a very non-conventional approach to a Saw movie, so much so that if you watched out of context and started watching like the first 20-25 minutes of this movie, you may forget that you're even watching a Saw movie at all. But the build-up is worth it, and it's well-deserved, because you're building to something that you kind of already know if you saw the trailers, that John Kramer is doing this experimental procedure, which is actually just a big hoax. But it does it in such a way where you have a lot of sympathy for his character. And that's something intriguing. They walk a fine line, these writers, when it comes to John's character, because Jigsaw is crazy, and he, in a sense, is an evil man. But on the other hand, he has a moral compass. It's just a different and perverted one, in a way. But there is something there. Throughout this movie, there are moments where he makes choices that I would say are definitively good choices. And it contrasts, though, with these ones that you know are wrong. And it creates a thing called cognitive dissonance, where you don't quite know how to feel about his character. On one hand, you like him. On the other hand, you hate him. It's compelling. And I think that kind of depth to his character, especially Tobin Bell doing this amazing performance as always, really sells that in this movie, and that's the heart of this, which is fantastic. Of course, we get other legacy characters as well. I won't do an entire spoilery thing, but from the trailer, at least Amanda is in the movie, and it makes sense given when this movie is supposed to take place, and it really was warranted. I think it's nice to have her back in the franchise, and she has a lot to do here, and I appreciate that. Shifting a little gears from the story, I want to talk about just the overall aesthetic, the look, the feel of this movie, because it really does take you back to that era in the Saw movies. It's got the green haze over everything. It feels grungy. Basically, the entire climax of the movie takes place in this grungy warehouse, just like a lot of previous movies. It had a feel that was similar to like Saw 3. which is interesting, or 4, or any of those kind of middle of the way Saw movies. And I thought it really captured that vibe quite well. The music also by Charlie did a great job of bringing you back to that time. And of course we get our 10th rendition of Hello Zepp, which is just fantastic. I've always loved that theme song. It's probably one of the greatest theme songs in horror film history. And there are some twists and turns. I won't spoil everything in this review, but there are some twists and turns, and you can be darn sure that Zepp 10 hits right when you want it to. It's fantastic. Talking about the gore for a brief second, I'm not the gore hound here. Like, I don't come to these movies to see, like, gizzards and guts spilling out, and there is that. Don't get me wrong. And it's well done, too. The makeup effects are really well done. It's very gross. Your stomach churns. I actually had to lay back in my seat a little bit because it's intense. But it doesn't take away from the story. In a sense, it kind of enhances it, and it also lets you see how Jigsaw reacts to the things that he's making people kind of do, and how he rationalizes it. It's very interesting. I mean, there's a lot of great things that this movie brings up, and it really lets you answer the question as an audience member, and it gives you different opinions. You have Amanda and Jigsaw talking about why it's good that they do this, and of course, everyone else why it's terrible. And I think most of us agree it's terrible, but the conversation that happens is interesting to see unfold on the screen. And what makes it more compelling are that the people in this movie are so resentful that you dislike them so much that in a way you're rooting for Jigsaw, and you go, no, I couldn't. But they're like scamming people who are dying of cancer and taking their money and giving them false hope. It's a great setup. It's actually astonishing this wasn't thought of before, but kudos to the writers. This was definitely their most solid of screenplays so far. There are a couple of hand-fisted lines, I suppose, but honestly, for the dramatic beats, I'm cool with it. I mentioned that twist ending. I feel like if you're a veteran Saw fan, you can kind of see where the twist might happen and what could happen. Not maybe the entire logistics of it, but you can see what might be coming. And you know what? That's fine because it's all the more satisfying. But even so, the situation that Jigsaw is placed in at the end of this movie is very interesting to see unfold, even knowing what the twist may be, and even with a rewatch, which I will be seeing this movie again in theaters, it's just so different. I know I keep saying unique and different, but this movie does feel like it's breaking new ground in a series that's 10 movies in. And my worry is not that the movie won't be well received, but the opposite. I feel like this movie is going to do so well and they're going to want to make more. But the thing is, this is like like almost a lightning in a bottle situation. They got a perfect, limited, scoped movie. It's going to be hard to take what this movie did and try to do it again. You got the John stuff. You got it all. I really don't want to say this because I love this series, but maybe they should just stop after 10. I mean, that's really hard for me to say because, you know, you want your franchises to go on forever, but this is a great stopping point. It's giving the Jigsaw character a final swing, a final gusto, and Amanda and some other characters. If they are going to pick up anything from here, it's going to have to be a powerful script. But honestly, I feel like these writers can handle it. They've definitely proven themselves over these past couple Saw movies. Jigsaw and Spiral were very derivative. Spiral had the nice little gimmick of having Chris Rock in it with some comedy. But Jigsaw was more or less the same thing. It was like a Saw 5 soft reboot, basically. But this, even though it turns very just classic Saw in the middle, the beginning and the end are so different that I think it's warranted that the middle should, you know, give the fans kind of what they want. All that to say, I'm very pleased in Saw 10. I'm very happy as a fan. If I had to give it like a star rating out of 5, it'd get like a 4.5. Really pleased with it. It was very dramatic. You know, when I was in the theater, and the theater wasn't packed, unfortunately. I went on the Thursday opening, like the soft opening or whatnot. And you have, like, people, when, like, satisfying things happen, cheer, or people being, like, or gasping, or being emotional, or, like, sympathetic toward Jigsaw or any of the characters. When the audience reacts like that, that, to me, is a cinematic experience. That's why I love the theater. And to see Saw 10 there was just great. Kudos to the people that made this movie. Kevin did an awesome job with the direction. It felt old school Saw, yet it felt fresh at the same time, which is a hard line to walk, and I think a lot of fans, including myself, are going to be really pleased with it. Like I said, the original Saw still remains my favorite, just for what it did, and the characters are very compelling in it. This one might be second, and then 2, or 2, and then this one, and then, like, 4 or 6. I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely in the top. It's definitely in the top 3. And that's crazy that it's 2023. This series is nearly 20 years old, and we're still getting top 5, top 3 installments. Saw 10, you have my seal of approval. Thank you for watching, everyone, and remember, for all things Halloween, this is Hauntformer. You know, just as like a little fanboy guy, I only had one nerdish, stupid, dumb qualm with this movie. Billy the Puppet did not laugh.